There's an Italian fairy tale about two of the most toxic people you'll ever know who end up together and really deserve each other. It's called The King of Denmark's Son. A king and queen can't have a child. They pray and they finally get a daughter. And so they call in 12 astrologers to give her fortune. Much like the fairies in the Grimm Brothers' Sleeping Beauty, they all say she's going to be clever, she's going to be beautiful, she's going to have all these talents. But then the 12th one's like, yeah, that's all going to come true, but unfortunately she's going to fall desperately in love with the first man she ever hears named. The king and queen are like, we don't like that. What are we going to do? And the astrologer's like, build her a tower and fill it with like nurses and maidservants so she's not lonely, but close all the windows. She can't even see sunlight, and she just can't ever be in the presence of a man until you want her to. So they do that. And later when she becomes a teenager, she reacts as most imprisoned people would and desperately wants to see outside. One day when she's alone, she manages to get a window open and she's like, oh, the sun, the sky. And then she hears these two men talking down below. And they're like, hey, why does the king's daughter live up there? Oh, they're protecting her because she's going to fall in love with the first man she hears about. She's supposedly really beautiful, but no one's ever seen her. Then one of the men goes, well, she can't be as beautiful as the King of Denmark's son. He has to walk around with 7 veils over his face because he's so hot that people will like go insane or pass out if they see him. Hearing that conversation, the king's daughter was seized with a frenzy and fell to the floor. Her maids of honor come running and she's like, I have to get out, I have to get out, I have to get out, because she's immediately needing this dude. And also probably crazy from being imprisoned her whole life. Next time her father comes to visit her, she falls to her knees. She says, you need to arrange a marriage between me and the King of Denmark's son, or I'm just gonna die. King's okay with that marriage arrangement, so he sends word to the King of Denmark's son. He sends ambassadors who have now seen the girl. I guess they're letting her see men now. The ambassadors meet with the son and they're like, this really beautiful princess wants to marry you. And he lifts one veil and says, is she as fine looking as I am? And they're like, yeah, she is. And then he lifts the next veil and the next veil. But by the time he gets to the 7th veil and reveals his face and says, is she as fine looking as I am? They're like, well, no, you're hotter. And he says, in that case, tell her I don't want her. They tell him, but your majesty, she said she'd hang herself if you said no. So he gets a rope, gives it to the ambassadors, and says, take this rope and tell her to hang herself then. So they go back, deliver the message. The girl does not hang herself, but sobs and cries and won't stop. The king is super mad, so he's like, go ask again. The same thing plays out with him lifting the veils, and they say, no, she's not as pretty as you once they see his full face, which, you know, even if it's true, like, you'd think they could lie. I mean, also beauty is subjective. But he says no, and then they say, but she said she'll take a knife and stab herself if you say no. And so, of course, he gives him a knife and says, tell her to stab herself. This happens one more time where they say, hey, she said she'll get a gun and shoot herself. And so he gives them a gun and says, tell her to do it. After this third rejection, the princess asks her dad to do what anyone would ask. She says, build me an iron cask, close me up in it, and toss me out into the sea. So he does. He puts her in there with a crown on her head, carrying that rope, that knife, and that gun, and they toss her out into the ocean. Now, we don't know if she planned this or not. I think she did, but the cask washes up on this land where there's a castle where the King of Denmark's son that she wants, his sister, lives in this palace. The sister finds the cask, opens it up, and the girl tells her story, and she's like, don't worry, my brother comes to visit me sometimes, so like you can see him when he comes to visit, he'll see how beautiful you are and he'll change his mind. Now, the reason the brother visits his sister is not just because he loves his sister, but every month he wants a glass of seawater to drink, which from everything I know is a bad idea. But when he comes for his next visit, the queen sends our girl to go give him his glass of seawater. And as soon as he sees her, he immediately falls in love with her. So he tells his sister, I'm not going to come here every month anymore. I'm coming every fortnight. And then he does. And then he's like, never mind, I'm coming every week. Well, eventually one time he comes and our girl isn't the one who brings him the water. And he's like, where is that girl? His sister's like, oh, she's not feeling well. And he's like, well, I'll go to her room and see her. And when he walks in there, our girl is sitting there with the rope, the knife, and the pistol he sent to her. She looks at him and says, now which of these 3 things should I use? He like still doesn't get it. So she's like, I'm the princess who sent the ambassadors to you and you rejected me. He says, I was misled. Had I known you were so beautiful, I would have said yes at once. And so then they decide to get married. She writes a letter to her dad that says, hey, I'm, with the sister queen. I'm going to go marry him and live with him in Denmark. And the king is overjoyed and they all go there for a big, fabulous wedding. I can only hope he gets a little more humble and less superficial and that she, gets some therapy to deal with, the trauma. Just about every fairy tale protagonist needs therapy, honestly. As always, check out my podcast and my book, Dust Spells, a reimagining of the 12 Dancing Princesses. See you next time.